Game week 6 in Serie A, and we are delighted to be back. So much to talk about. As always, welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. My name is Rory. I'm joined by my very good friends Adam and Andrea. Andrea, how you doing, man?
Good, thank you. I mean, I was enjoying the weekend of football up until about Sunday, 5 p.m. Then a couple hours after that, I don't know what happened. And then the rest was good as well. But yeah, good weekend.
As is often the case with football, the weekend's great apart from the bit that involves your team, right? It
Yeah.
happens fairly often. Adam, how you doing, man? Better weekend? Wickham won.
Wickham won, so we're in a very strong position in the league. But more importantly, I decided to experience being the middleman. I was a referee for my boys' football match, which was a bit of drama in itself. So had to give a penalty against my boys' team, unfortunately.
No love in the game.
All I can say, although that sounds like a dramatic kind of decision that I had to make, what made it even funnier was that the opposition had two kids that were eager to take the penalty. One of them I thought was running up to take it. The other boy decides to run up and hoof it and completely blaze it over the bar. And as that kind of referee, I couldn't do anything about it. I just had to go, oh, well, kick off. We carry on. That was my weekend summed up really nicely by refereeing two matches there. So, all I can say is I don't envy the job of a referee these days.
And was anybody sent off for delay in the restart? I hope you did your job properly, right?
No, I let the game flow. That's all I can say.
Very good work. This is what we like to see, right?
Exactly.
This is the common sense we need in the game. Well, fantastic. Guys, we hope you had a great weekend as well. There's so much that happened in Serie A this weekend. Quite a few or two goal fests as Torino and Lazio duked it out on Sunday afternoon. That was delightful to watch. Como and Hellas duked it out towards the bottom of the table. Inter and Udinese duked it out on Saturday also. But a important win for Roma, which looked like it was really going to go the wrong way. A 2-0 win for Napoli puts them top of the table. And Juve finally ended their goal drought. And all their worries drifted away. So, guys, we're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss all the action in Serie A this weekend. And we are back. And we're going to start Interin, not with Juventus, with Torino 2, Lazio 3, an absolute ding-dong of a game here. I was really excited to watch this game, to be honest, because these are the two of the teams that have impressed me most consistently this season. I feel like, obviously, we always tip Torino to do well, and they let us down. But for now, they're not letting us down despite this result. And Lazio, maybe my Scuddetto bet was just a season too late. Who knows? But Andrea, this was a fantastic game, 5 goals. What were your main takeaways from this game?
I think the main takeaway is that both teams can clearly go forward and create a lot of chances and take them away as well. I think out of all the teams in Serie A this season, them two have really stuck out the most consistently as well as you said. I think obviously a bit defensively could be a question mark between the two. I think they do concede a lot of chances, but they're fun to watch, and you got to love it. And yeah, I hope it continues for both.
No, I really enjoyed it. I really like the high energy of this game. Both teams were like fully going for it. A lot of pressing, a lot of counter pressing, all those, woke terms. I felt like it was really high intensity. And like Lazio got off to a fantastic start. And Adam, we need to start with this man. The season he is having, Arsenal fans everywhere are worried that we maybe set the price too low for the buy clause, as Nuno Tavares gets another assist, setting up another ex-Arsenal man, as Guendouzi puts it away for 1-0. But I'm not surprised that Baroni is getting the most out of his wing-backs, right? It's something he did really well at Verona, but the start that Tavares is having, defensively also, now Lazio have their issues, but he's not looking as chaotic defensively as he did at Arsenal. Like, it's an incredible start he's having, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's slotted in quite nicely. And I think, obviously, Baroni's style of football certainly is something that appeases most. I think he's getting the best out of the players. And I think it's been evident in the last few seasons that Baroni has been a coach, from Lecce to Hellas to now Lazio, that he's getting the best out of these players. So that deserves a lot of credit. And, for Tavares, this is kind of like almost like a last chance saloon to prove that he can compete at this level, because I think there's been a lot of doubts about his ability in previously at Arsenal, but also on various loan spells since. And, this is the opportunity for him to really make a mark. And he's definitely taking it with two hands. So, full of credit to Nuno Tavares, because it would be very easy for him to just sit and get the money, but not make the most of the opportunity. But you have to hand it to Baroni. It's also quite fun. Like, this is probably the first time I can say about a Lazio side that I'm actually intrigued to see what the next match is going to be like, because they have been genuinely quite interesting on the eye. But as you guys have alluded to, full of credit to both coaches, the way that they approach the game as well. I love the quote by Paolo Vanali pre-game, where he was obviously getting criticism about the Empoli results midweek in the Coppa Italia, and he referred to the fact that his mum doesn't have wheels, so therefore she's not a wheelbarrow. More aimed at the journalist having a go at him for maybe not being too defensive and pragmatic. But it was a great game, Rory. I don't know what your thoughts were, but certainly it was a different Torino side that we saw this weekend, that's for sure.
No, absolutely. I just feel like there was a lot of attacking talent on that pitch. There was a lot of if you look at those front lines, Zapata is someone that I kind of worried after he left Atalanta that it might kind of be the kind of winter of his career, and we might not see him hit the heights that he did for Atalanta, but he's consistently their biggest threat. And as a captain, I feel like he's genuinely a big enough character and really drives that team forward and really is that focal point. Really impressed with his performances. And then, as we've said many times, Richie is a fantastic player, but alongside him, a player like Ilic is just fantastic since he's come into the team. And so I think there's a lot of attacking talent there. But as Andrea said at the beginning, the issues here were kind of defensively. Both teams are giving up a lot of chances. The midfield were quite gap-filled. But it leads to a kind of an entertaining spectacle, right? But the other player I want to talk about on Lazio is Boulaye Dia. He's had an incredible start, such a great signing. I think it's now 4 goals for them. He got 2 midweek in Europe as well. Andrea, did you see him becoming such a key player for them so quickly? I remember the first game I saw him playing with Castellanos. I saw a bit of kind of promise in their relationship, but it seems to really be coming on, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm a bit surprised as well, because I thought he'd have to be the main man for Lazio. I thought he might struggle having to kind of play interlinking with Castellanos, but yeah, I think he stood out really well. And what I like about him as well, I feel like he's added to his game even more than from his previous club at Salernitana as well. And I'm just really impressed with him. And again, it's only going to get better as well. And I think it's an underrated signing as well. I'm quite surprised in the end. He never got the move initially. Now eventually got the move, and it's worked out as the right one for him as well.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting for one of the bigger clubs to move for him, but I think quite a lot of clubs were scarred by Simi, right? I think everyone saw people sign Simi and were like, okay, let's just wait and see what happens here. But yeah, they've done really well to pick him up. I really like their summer business because, of course, Noslin, their other signing this summer, comes in the 89th minute and gets what turns out to be the winning goal, right? About 30 seconds after coming onto the pitch.
Yes,
Castellanos was still walking around the pitch as he scored, right? He hadn't even had time to reach the bench. But we've got this far. We've not even talked about the moment of the match, really. Adam, Koko's goal is, I think it's my goal of the week for Serie A. It has to be. Unbelievable strike.
Unbelievable technique. And he has threatened this in the last few weeks because he's actually scored, I want to say it was against Venezia, if I remember rightly. So yeah, he's got that in his arsenal, but what a finish. What an incredible technique that he used for that. I mean, if he'd seen that as the goal that maybe got them back into the game, what a way to do it. Unfortunately, it was just to claw back the deficit, I suppose, to an extent. But on the DR point as well, I did see Marco Baroni kind of comment post-match about the fact that he's loving the kind of interchangeable skills between Castellanos and Dia, and the fact that they offer so much dynamism for Lazio that I think probably if you had Ciro Immobile still there, I think maybe that gets lacking or gets missed sometimes. So the fact that he's been almost forced to obviously bring in Dia, but also play him alongside Castellanos, who we kind of speculated in last week's podcast about the fact that he's obviously a missing link, because obviously when he does go off injured or he's not available for games, then they are missing a focal point in that kind of attack. But the fact that they've got someone interchangeable with both Dia and Castellanos, they offer something different. I think that gives the perfect optionality to Lazio going forward. So it'll be interesting to see whether they can maybe drum up some more business in the January transfer window to just maybe get them a little bit further off the line, because I don't think they necessarily completed all the business they wanted to do in the summer. But yeah, promising signs for Baroni and Lazio.
I like this Noslin coming off the bench as well, because I think him being a starting striker, it's a big step up from like half a year in Verona.
Yeah.
Like he came and left pretty quickly, right? And I think him having that starting spot is quite an intense spotlight. So I think having him off the bench with the energy and the pace that he brings, I think it's a really good option. As I said, Castellanos kind of has his injury, his fitness issues. I don't know how much you can't overload him too much for 90 minutes. So I think it's a really good option for them to have. And of course, another goal for Shea Adams. It looked like it was going to be a goal-changing moment. In our Fantacalcio draft, everyone was telling me if they should sign Shea Adams. I was like, no, don't bother. Like, just don't spend too much on him. And they're all absolutely tearing me to pieces now, being like, why didn't you buy him? Why didn't you buy him? Andrea, he's having a really good impact off the bench, right? He seems to be taking to the league really well. And it's, again, another well-taken goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually quite surprised. Unlike you, I thought he wasn't going to fit in well, but yeah, surprisingly he has. And I think it's such a different change, obviously, from Premier League as well to Serie A. So he's done really impressive to already start showing signs. And I guess he's still kind of youngish as well in his career as well. So he's definitely going to develop some more. So yeah, I think he's really positive for now. Yeah, definitely.
I think it's a huge signing for Torino, honestly. I think it's just like a really, like, having that big name, kind of relatively, right? Big name that comes in and just, yeah, he's hit the ground running massively for Torino. So delighted for them. And yeah, two managers who are kind of really up and coming in Serie A, right? Baroni, we've been talking about for a while. And yeah, the guy at Torino, I didn't expect it to take so quickly to it, if you know what I mean. I didn't expect to get there so quickly. But yeah, exciting season for Torino. And an incredible game, 3-2 to Lazio. Lovely stuff. Let's move on to the next game, and we're going to talk about, let's go down to, should we talk Genoa 0, Juventus 3? I got COVID flashbacks as I saw the empty ground. I was like, oh my God, it's 2020 again, or whatever year it was. Please don't make me go back. Adam, but no sickness for Juve. 3 goals, all problems solved, right?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of intense conversations about the approach into this match, because Motta had already essentially told the press his squad for the upcoming match on the Friday, which was a bit like of a bizarre situation, I suppose. He named them by first terms as well. You know, he said Dusan would play up front. And I think that was kind of a big confidence winner for Dusan Vlahovic, because there was a lot of speculation that he might be dropped, but also the likes of Kellen Yildiz maybe being preferred in that role. But yeah, he put a lot of faith into Dusan and he repaid that faith. Obviously, I suppose as a result of that, the main piece that came out was the fact that Motta has now created history as being one of the first teams now to have gone as long as they have without conceding a goal in the first 6 games of the campaign. So that is incredible feat when you consider the style of football that Motta's implemented. I know there was a lot of banter around the fact that maybe Allegri is still living within the spirit of Thiago Motta. But yeah, I mean, I suppose also the circumstances probably didn't help necessarily as well with that, the fact that it was closed off, and that was due to the basically what had happened was Sampdoria played Genoa in the Coppa Italia, and the Genoa fans decided to basically trounce the memorial for Gianluca Vialli. So hence the game was closed to basically no one apart from officials in this match. And yeah, I think there's obviously got to be a word around Genoa and maybe the words that they're going to be struggling this season, because that performance wasn't great. I mean, they did have chances, but I don't think they are going to really pull off many points at this stage. But full of credit to Juventus in terms of the approach. They certainly looked more up for it. Coop Miners could have had one or get his first for the club as well.
He was really unlucky when that came off the crossbar. Right? He was really unlucky, really unlucky. Yeah, I feel like I was kind of... I was impressed by Juve, but the whole time I was like, yeah, this Genoa team aren't putting a glove on them, are they? Like, they're not even getting close. But this kind of proves, I still think, despite the 3 goals, right? And Andrea, tell me if I'm being unreasonable. I'm still concerned for Juve that if Dusan Vlahovic doesn't score, who scores, right? I know Gonzalez got another goal here, but it still does very much feel like all their attacking threat is lying on one man, right? Like, as big a win as this is, Motta still needs to address how to get goals spread out around this squad, no?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a part of it comes from the fact that, he's inheriting a squad where for these number of years where they've been playing a certain way, being very pragmatic. And I think that's a hard transition to get. And I think Motta's at least kind of accepted it and kind of alluded to it a bit in his style of play as well, but still trying to keep that final third to try and attack the way that Motta wants to play. But ultimately, though, when you are being a bit too pragmatic, yeah, it does become relying on Vlahovic, and we know he hasn't been consistent enough. And I think it's still going to continue because I feel like it's very common for a manager in the first season to kind of, with the squad they've inherited, to kind of stick with kind of some of the philosophies that they may have had and then obviously implement their own. And I think we're seeing that, and I think Juventus are getting results for it. It's not the prettiest that we saw Motta at Bologna, but if it's getting the results, that's the main thing, and that's what Juve care about as well. Yeah. But yeah, I still think it's a massive concern, and I'm not going to get carried away that he scored 2 goals. I think it's great, but I still agree. I still think there's a lot of pressure on him, and it could get to a time where they might look at that false 9 option as well in certain games, if it might kind of elevate the final third, get kind of Yildiz into the action more and contributing goals as well.
I quite like the idea of Yildiz playing centrally at some point as well. I think he could do a really good job there. And yeah, I just feel like it's just a bit too much pressure on Vlahovic's shoulders at the moment that he is their whole attacking outlet. But Adam, for Genoa, it is all looking a little bit alarming. Now, obviously, they had a big summer with kind of departures and 777's always all over the place. But what's changed? What's going wrong? Because they were one of the teams that was so exciting and never even looked slightly near relegation last year. And this year they're they're still winless, right?
They are. Unfortunately, I don't think they've got the quality within the squad anymore. When you pull like one player out of the squad, for example, let's say if it was Retegui at that point, then you're kind of relying on Gudmundsson to maybe pull you through, for example. But they sold those 2 alongside Josip Martinez as a goalkeeper to Inter. That's quite a lot of quality being pulled out of your squad straight away. And, Genoa run on quite a tight budget, as we know from the 777 ownership. So this was always going to be a difficult task for Gilardino. I think we all said on this podcast, even when Andrea joined us, what a great job that Gilardino had achieved. And we all speculate about Gilardino maybe progressing to a bigger side in due course. But I still feel he's got the ability to pull it through. The only problem is, will he get necessarily the backing from the hierarchy at Genoa, given the circumstances? I think they still expect him to somehow work a miracle. And I think it might be a step too far, potentially, because you need to invest regardless. And I can't believe that they're going to let him just struggle on and not maybe give him at least January transfer window to turn it around in terms of trying to at least bring in maybe some few free transfers through the door or something like that. But the quality that they've got, whether it's in the squad or if you look even for this match, for example, pulling them off the bench, they haven't got people that can turn games, unfortunately. They haven't got that quality. When you look at the front line, for example, Vitinha, for example, he has moments, but that's about it, example-wise. And you look at it, Pinamonte, who they bought in for a bit of money from, obviously, Sassuolo at the time, has not really struck anything at the moment. So he hasn't really got any momentum right now. I just look across it. I mean, it's a struggle, isn't it? Moretti, maybe, perhaps, on his day could be good. Zanoli, I've been a big fan of. But this is it.
Moretti's very much a midfielder that's kind of like your metronome, your kind of like ball winner. I don't feel like he's someone that's going to get you assists, get you goals, he can tie the team together, but I don't think he's going to be that difference maker in big moments, right? And that's one of the bigger names they brought in, as you said. I think Pinamonti is a weird one because I think people are still waiting for him to hit this peak that they have in their head that he's going to hit. And I think obviously they've got him on loan with an option, so they've not massively committed to it, but if he's your big signing, if he's your big, this is the marquee striker to replace Gudmundsson, right? you're kind of looking like you're struggling. Now they have got one win this year. Sorry, I've taken it off, and they've now got a win off what is currently, if the results remain the same, the league's only winless team, which is going to be Monza. They did beat Monza away 1-0 earlier in the season, so they have got a win, but they're currently on 5 points, 1 win, 2 draws, 3 losses, -6 goal difference. Like, it's really not looking good. And yeah, just a bit disappointing. But as you said, Gilardino not being backed or not being supported as much as we'd have hoped. Because I really, when like the Fiorentina job came up in the summer and when other jobs have come up, I was like, maybe clubs should be looking at him. Like, he's done such a good job with Genoa, but maybe he'll have to wait a little bit longer. I'm not sure. But a fantastic win for Juve. And that does keep them right up there in second place, 1 point behind Napoli. Still yet to lose a game, as you said, not conceded a goal. 3 wins, 3 draws, all what was everybody moaning about? Everything's going fine. He's crushing it. But let's move to the top of the table very quickly, because it wasn't the most exciting game in the world. But Kvaradona continues his incredible start to the season. He gets another goal. McTominay gets another assist. Andrea, Conte, with a week to prepare, absolutely crushing it down in Naples.
Absolutely. And I think it was that factor that was always going to play a part in seeing how Napoli could challenge for the title. It was kind of under the radar because Napoli had such a poor season last year, but that week preparation, Conte knows what to do. And you can kind of see in that game, it's game management as well. I think they were so comfortable as well going into it. And they didn't really let Monza have anything, any sniff or anything. It was simply just a comfortable professional performance. And yeah, exciting players like Kvaradona, you're saying, still putting up the numbers. And yeah, they're exciting to watch as well, which is quite surprising as well, I feel like. I think this game, not so much, but they have been with David Neres as well on the other side. But yeah, they look like a really strong team.
It's crazy that this is the same players from last year, right? And last year was such a shit show. But like, they've got a crazy deep bench as well. Like, when you look at the players they've got on the bench, for the fact they're only playing in one tournament this year and the Coppa Italia, right? Like, they off the bench, they brought off David Neres, Raspadori, Spinazzola, and Billy Gilmore, and Matsocchi, right? They brought off the bench. Like, all of those players could be starters, and arguably 1 or 2 of them should be, right? And then you've still on the bench got players like Ngonj, you've got, okay, Juan Jesus is crap, but like Zerbin, Simeone, you got some players there that can make a bit of difference. Like, their squad is super deep for a team that's only going to be caring about the league, really. So I think it's just, Adam, are we saying they're title contenders? I know it's like proper early days, but I can't see anything at this point where I'm like, they're not going to be up there.
I definitely think they are going to be up there in terms of, like, at least competing for this title. I don't think it's going to be anyone that's going to run away with it necessarily. But if there's a team that could potentially build up momentum and challenge, it's definitely Conte with this Napoli side. I think the way that they've approached it, given the setback of that Hellas Verona result at the very beginning, this just shows you what type of squad he's got now. He's built up that kind of culture within them. You can see how Scott McTominay's adapted really well. That performance midweek against Palermo, you saw dashes or flashes of what he could achieve potentially in this squad, and in particular in the Italian league. He looks like a player that was reborn in some respects, because you didn't see that necessarily part of his game at Man United, potentially because they were structured in a certain way, and maybe the intensity of the game in the Premier League is a lot more compared to the Serie A. But look,
there's also a structure at Napoli which helps.
Yeah,
there's also an idea, right?
Potentially, that also helps, right? But what I did want to refer to was Anguissa. I thought Anguissa in this particular match was superb. The way that he broke those kind of opportunity or created those opportunities from just those simple interceptions, breaking up the play, being able to read it was superb. And this is the Anguissa that I think there was signs of under Spalletti, maybe never really progressed under the previous managers that were there last season, and has pushed on this season under Conte. He's such a formidable kind of player because of his height, his strength on the ball as well. So yeah, he looks like he's going to push on this season, and that's probably terrifying for the rest of the league, but exciting for Napoli fans at the same time.
Yeah, on his day, he's one of the best midfielders in the league. Like, honestly, he's such a good player. His ability to read the ball as well, intercept passes, completely dictate play. I feel like last year, every time a new manager came in, they asked him to perform a different role. And he was just like, okay, now I'm going to be the number 6. Oh, no, now there's this guy, right? I'm going to play at number 8, or my job is to get forward a bit more. Like, he never scores, right? That's not his job. His job is to completely dominate that midfield, win the ball, pass it on to the people who progress it. And like every so often he'll make those late runs or he'll kind of increase the pressure. But I think on his day, he is such a pleasure to watch. And I think, he played incredibly well this game. That midfield of Anguissa, Lobotka and McTominay is really, really exciting. And McTominay almost in that kind of number 10 role is just really, really dangerous for teams, right? I think a mate of mine's a Napoli fan, and when the first time he saw McTominay play, he messaged me and was like, "Who is this demon who just keeps appearing from midfield? Like he just keeps bombing into the box." It's like every time you just see this man just flying forward. I think it's just having him a bit like with the leashes off is really exciting, and that's when he performed at his best at Man United as well, right? When he was just allowed to make those late runs into the box. So I think really exciting start from him. And we got more out of that than I thought. Are we concerned about Monza? They are still the team yet to win this year. Obviously, everybody's favorite in Nesta in charge. Remember that manager. Andrea, he's not having a great start. They can't seem to score a goal. There's zero attacking in this game, in this team, right?
Yeah, it's just completely flat in all areas of the pitch. And there's not even any sign in any of the games that they've just kind of fallen flat. And it's even this game, it's just like they just gave up. It was almost like there was no ideas. It was done. It is a worry, and it's a shame because Nesta, young Italian manager, like you'd want him to do well, but yeah, it's not looking good. I don't think. But I think the actual players they have, I don't think they have improved that much as well. So I don't think that helps in their favor either. Feel like in the final third in particular, the attacking options aren't the greatest either. He's kind of working with not the greatest of squads, but I guess the other managers could come in and make work of it, and we have seen it in the past in other clubs. So it could be an early call that might perhaps save Monza, but it certainly can't continue because we could be talking a real struggle in relegation battle this season.
Well, you never know. Davide Nicola might be out of work soon, so they might be able to draft him in to rescue the season. We'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, worrying times for them. I think obviously Colpani going is just huge for them, and Juric was like functional at Salernitana, but wasn't even their main striker. Like there was a lovely flick from Maldini at one point during the game. That was quite nice, but that was the only thing I can remember that was of note for Monza, unfortunately. Let's go to the next game and let's talk about... Adam, you talked about this in summing up your 5 points of the week fantastically on TikTok. Como 3, Verona 2. Cutrone having a hell of a season, and that man, Bellotti, getting the winner. Just incredible scenes at Como. All of a sudden... they've got a bit of form together. They're looking a bit dangerous, right?
They did look like they were very comfortable in this particular game. Probably says a bit about Hellas Verona at the same time, to be fair, Rory Doe. So yeah, if we refer to Como, they've started to threaten this in the last few games, through Cutrone, who is obviously a hometown boy, bringing it back into Serie A and scoring the goals, which is the most important thing for him. He's loved by them. That's the most important thing. And it probably just feels more at home in that environment as well, because, he's had the dizzying heights of the Molineux Stadium with Wolves, and then obviously Milan, to name a few of the big clubs that he's been to. But yeah, generally, look, it felt like this was the Cesc kind of style of football that he's been trying to implement down there. Obviously, it's taken its time. There were some hairy moments at times. I felt like at the back, they're playing it a little bit too fine at times. However, credit to them, they got the results on the day. Mazzatelli, in particular, I thought was really impressive for this match. But yeah, from a Hellas perspective, I'd say, yeah, very disappointing given they didn't give themselves a bad account on the day, but it wasn't helped by the fact that Suslov got himself sent off needlessly in the challenge that he did. And that really just made it harder. I suppose the question mark here is how long do we give Paolo Zanetti? Because, yeah, apart from that result at the beginning of the season, it seems like it's going to be another struggle for him. But also, Rory, we always say about Hellas that they're the team that are likely to go down. This is always prime time for us to speculate that they're going to go down.
Every single
And then
time.
something happens. Something triggers it.
They change
so
their
I'm
entire
not gonna
11 in
sponsor it.
January and then they stay up. That's what happens. Every single year, they just draft in 11 players from the second division in Holland and then they stay up. I don't know how they do it, but it really does not look good. And they're just conceding so many goals. It's just so open at the back. And like, look, Zanetti is the manager we said in the summer. We were like, that is not an inspiring appointment. That is a guy who struggled everywhere he's been. And is this kind of the guy that's going to really build on what was actually quite an exciting end to the season for them? Again, a team that's lost a lot of players, right? I'm surprised Suslov's still there, honestly. But like they've lost a lot of players, but yeah, it does not look great. For Como, they're also conceding a lot of goals, right? So they have won like huge win against Atalanta. Like if Cesc can tell Arsenal how to score against Atalanta next time, that would be fantastic. But like a huge win there, but they are letting in a lot of goals. Like, Andrea, do you think this is kind of the style of football they're playing is inviting it? Do you think it's a lack of kind of quality back there? You've got Moreno who's getting on a bit, Dosena's getting on a bit. Like, do you think it's the style or just the players aren't quite up to it?
I think it's a bit of both. I think the style, you'd want to see it happen because knowing how they've been playing, I think in this particular game they were so dominant possession wise, like they absolutely dominated this game, and it's great to see. And I think they've got to start implementing that in these games. So, but of course that does come with a cost with not the quality players they don't have in the defense, that you're going to concede a lot of chances and goals. So they've got to be a bit, I guess, cautious at times. But I think it's important that they kind of instill that philosophy that Fabregas is doing. Is clearly working. But yeah, they do seem, it seems to be a both. I think it's the style of formation, but also the defense. Like you said, the defense seems quite a few players that don't really seem up to the level. But I think, again, the main thing is if they can implement this philosophy and stay up, I'm sure they'll start to attract more. But I think it's definitely got some sort of clear understanding and a great identity, which they can go forward with for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really exciting. There's already some players there that you think, with all due respect to Como, if Cesc wasn't in charge, maybe the players wouldn't be there. But especially Roberto in midfield, who they got from Barcelona, right?
Yeah, on a free transfer, yeah.
And then Paz from Real Madrid as well. Absolutely fantastic, beautiful little player. Where you can just see that like real technical quality at the other end of the pitch. Just really beautiful to watch. So yeah, I think the goalkeeper situation is going to be interesting because obviously it was Pepe Reina, now it's Adero. They're kind of deciding, I think, between a rock and a hard place there, really, with the goalkeepers. But they need to decide which one they're going to stick with. But yeah, they've turned it around because I thought, obviously, they did have a really hard start to the season. They had Juve away and stuff. So it's good to see them getting those wins because I did worry that their confidence might just never quite get there. And I'm always happy to see Cesc happy. So yeah, good times at Como. I need to go and watch a game there at some point because it is literally an hour down the road. I can't believe I've not been yet. But let's go to the next game. Adam, where are we going to next? Let's go for
Roma,
as the song goes. This was, what a game. I was ready to tear up all my notes on Venezia from their first half performance. All I could think of was the Milan game where they got absolutely embarrassed, and I thought this might be the worst team I've ever seen in Serie A.
Yeah.
And then the first half against Roma was the exact opposite of everything I'd seen them do. It was like the commitment from the players to get back and forward in numbers, the shape, the discipline, like everything about it was about making life hard for Roma. Now, Roma, we've talked about the fact they're very ponderous in attack, and that definitely continued in this game. But Venezia were really able to like maximize that and just catch them on the break when they really and when they did catch them on the break, they looked so dangerous. So I was like really impressed by this Venezia performance. And the whole time I thought, right, my narrative of this is going to be, right, Juric is in trouble. Nobody's happy. The ultras are ready to burn the stadium to the ground. Roma's in chaos. And then the second half happened and Roma managed to turn it around very fortuitously, I will say. Yes. The goal from Cristante with a massive deflection from Buzio, I think, which was really unlucky. And you can see Buzio, the second it hits him, he was like, oh, fuck. Like, loops over the goalkeeper. And then I'm going to give Juric some credit here because his substitutions made a massive difference. Now, I was kind of dubious when he brought off Kone in midfield. because I thought he'd actually had a relatively decent game. I thought he was carrying the ball. He was like progressing it. I thought he was one of Roma's more effective players. And when he took him off, I was like, wow, that's quite a bold call. But he brought on Baldanzi and the winner scorer and Roma boy Pizzilli. And it did completely change the game. I thought Baldanzi is a player that I'm obsessed with anyway. I really like how he plays. I thought he was really effective. But what I found really interesting was Pizzilli was a threat from every corner. Since he came on, or after he came on, he basically got his head to the ball on every single delivery. And I thought Venezia need to address this at some point because he came close maybe once or twice. And then the third time, bang, it's literally right onto his head, scores a goal, gets the winner. I feel like Roma got out of jail here, but it does show that Juric is able to affect games when it's not going his way, right? He's able to identify the problems and turn a game to his favor. Adam, I'm going to let you go for Venezia while I give Andrea Roma. This was improved from Venezia. Poyampalo with a beautiful goal. They looked like they could cause team problems. We know Roma haven't been great, but still this was much improved, right?
It was much improved. They definitely turned up for this match. And like we've already said, it was a completely different Venezia side. Obviously, there's probably a factor of Eusebio Di Francesco coming back to his old stomping grounds and obviously trying to impress the old faithful as it would be. However, credit to the way that they played. They looked a little bit more like they were comfortable with now the kind of Serie A standards. They are probably still considered a Serie B team ultimately because of the qualities and the fact that they haven't been able to add that quality maybe in depth. But look, they gave it a lot of grit, determination, heart in terms of this performance. Obviously, it's just the finishing, the lack of that clinical edge in front of goal. Orestiano was another one that was like a culprit in terms of not finishing off his chances. So it wasn't just Poyampalo, who obviously is the main focal point for their attacks. But yeah, like you say, I think even Gianluca Busio has a fantastic engine in him. You know, in that middle of the park, he is just phenomenal. So I would not be surprised if he gets snapped up, whether that be at the end of the season or, you know, potentially in January. But yeah, full of credit for the way that Venezia went about it, because this is certainly a side that feels like it's got a little bit more fight in it now. It feels like it's got something about it, but I still think they are still lacking in terms of that quality of depth. That's the thing.
Yeah, I think like when I'm putting praise on Venezia here, it was like they kind of did the bare minimum to make the game difficult, right? As opposed to Milan away, where they just completely threw their hand in. I just thought it was a big improvement, but still there's huge holes in this squad, right? I think Poyampalo is by far their best player, And like, if there's a lot of pressure on Vlahovic, there's even more on Poyampalo in Venezia, right? But still, he missed a fair few opportunities. Yeah, every time they broke forward, I was just like, there was either one pass too many or just the wrong choice, or like snapping at the shot. And I was like, if you just calm down a little bit, Venezia could have been 2 or 3-0 up in that first half, I swear, because they just kept running through that Roma team. Every time Roma committed far too many players forward and just weren't able to get back. Like, Andrea, despite this being a win, there are still massive warning signs for this Roma team. I still think Ndicka is like, that back three are making a lot of mistakes. I think they're giving the ball away quite a lot. They can't really seem to be able to build up solidly, right? Or be able to give that solid base to the team.
Yeah, definitely. I think the other issue with all three of them is that all three of them have a mistake in them as well. They're quite rash. They're quite, all over the place in that sense. I think overall, the worry I would have as well is that in that game, if you look at the stats after the game, Venezia literally had 30% possession, yet will manage to these chances, 18 shots they had, which is unbelievable. So, like, that's a concern. Like, a team not having the ball much could still create all these chances. So I think that's a massive concern. I'm still dubious of the El Shaarawy at wing back. I don't think that's a long-term thing either. It makes them defensively a bit more weaker as well. But yeah, the main issue for me is that, like you said, the passing out from the back is another concern. And when you've got three at the back, that's the primary reason why you do it. So you can use your centre backs to be ball-playing defenders and actually bring the ball forward, pass it forward, and they can't even do that. They're very kind of, let's say, old-fashioned centre-backs, I guess, in that sense. They're very, they'll do no-nonsense kind of defenders rather than that. I think it makes them quite static in defence as well. But yeah, and obviously I think there's still issues within the midfield as well, trying to find the right balance there as well. But yeah, overall, I think there's a lot of concerns still. And like I said, to be honest, watching that game, when that Cristante goal went in, I felt so deflated as a neutral of Venezia. I can't imagine the players, how they would have felt in that moment to like have the motivation to kind of stay in the game. So I'm not too surprised in the end that Roma did go on to win it. But they were very fortunate again. I mean, it could just be the new manager bounce, I guess. But long-term wise, I feel like we will start to see the issues kind of arise that we're seeing already.
Yeah, I just felt like there was zero stability, and like you said, the fact that Venezia was so able to carve them open, a better team is going to put them to the sword quite quickly. So I think Juric has a few issues to sort out there, but the Roma fans will not care, as they did finally get that win and save their blushes, because a loss at home to Venezia would have been about as embarrassing as they could get this season, I think. Let's go to the next game, and I can't believe they're this far down the running order. Inter 3, no wait, Udinese 2, Inter 3. Obviously, since we praised Udinese on this show, they haven't won a game. So you're welcome, Udinese. This pod's still doing its work. But Adam, the big talking point before this was the fact that Lautaro wasn't exactly in free scoring form. One goes in accidentally, and then he gets a second. All the problems are solved, right?
Yeah, he's ended his goal drought, right? And that's the most important thing. I think there's been a bit of criticism towards Lautaro for the fact that maybe he's not been as engaged or his usual self. I think there's also some critical comments about maybe he's carrying some timber. Maybe he's been eating too many of Correa's barbecues of late. But yeah, I mean, this looks like the kind of... I suppose, wake up that they needed. They needed that result against Milan to shake it up a bit more. And look, they get going again. So they have to now just create a unbeaten run, I suppose, in the league, really, to just ensure that they've got that consistency. I think there's still question marks at the back. I think if you look at the way that Udinese scored their goals, I think maybe there's opportunities there where maybe they should have done it better. What I would say is Jordan Zamora, who was previously of Bournemouth, being able to do the performance that he did in this match. Keenan Davis was also here playing for Udinese. So there's a few of the kind of regular Brits that we know of playing in this particular match. But yeah, Udinese, I think they have fallen off. Unfortunately, that early momentum has slipped by them. But credit to Inter. They did the job professionally in the end. I suppose there's been question marks about Fratesi as well, but he got the early goal in this match, so that set the tone for Inter. And I suppose by the time they came out for the second half and Lautaro adds that third, I think Inter cruising pretty much. They knew that they had the game sealed. So the question marks, I suppose, should be aimed at whether Inzaghi needs to look at that kind of rotation that he's doing at the moment, whether he needs to do it as persistently as he does. And then when you're thinking about Udinese, do they need to maybe give a few of their players a breather at the moment, because they've been quite intense in the style of football as well. So, yeah, lots of signs of promising aspects from Inter's perspective. But Rory, what did you make of Udinese's performance as well?
I thought it was exciting. There's a lot of quality there. They really pushed Inter, but I think a lot of it is the fact that Inter's defense is really not what it used to be. And I think we can that's another talking point that defense needs fixing out, working out. I was looking at how they were lining up, and it feels like every game the back three is completely different. So I feel like they need to settle on what that back three is. For me, it looked like Pavard, Acerbi, and Bastoni is kind of their best back three. And their results were kind of better when it was those three. And when he's tried to bring in Bisek, or when he's dropped Acerbi, or when he's dropped, it's not quite been as good. So I think that defense really needs settling and just stick with that, because we've seen with other teams, the goalkeeper and centre backs need to understand what's going on, right? And when it changes every other game, it just makes things less predictable. But I think Udinese, look, as we've said so many times, their season isn't going to be dictated by how they got on against Inter, but I think there's still enough quality there that they're going to have a good season. I think even like Lorenzo Luca is a player we've talked about where I've been a little bit dubious, but he's starting to hit his straps a little bit. He got another goal here. They've still got Alexis Sanchez to come back. Everything's fine. They'll be all right in Udinese. But Inter, I think there's a little bit of a concern that they're not. The season isn't going as well as they'd hoped. And something needs to change for them to address that, because I think also the big issue for them is that Barella's out injured now, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a long-term injury. Like they're saying that he's not going to play before the next international break, right? So they're saying I think it's going to be a pretty long injury, and that for me is a bigger issue. And I wonder how much protection that takes away from the defense, him not being there. Like I know, like Çalhanoğlu does a lot of defensive work clearly, but I feel like Barella does a lot of that mopping up and intercepting as well. And I wonder who that midfielder is going to be that's going to come in and do that job, right? Because I think he's a player that does so much of the quiet work, Barella, that the second you take him out, you instantly realize he's not there, right? So I think Inzaghi needs to figure that out, and quickly. Because as we saw against City, he was like the best player on the pitch, right? And he like stood out, and you're like, this is by far Inter's best player. So I think that is kind of a bigger issue for me at the moment with Inter, is the defense, and then that replacing Barella, because I don't know if he can be replaced. I think bringing in a player like Fratesi, he seemed to be having that role for this game, or like he took the spot of Barella, even if it wasn't the same role. But he's not a midfielder I think of as any defensive wise, really. He's that midfielder that runs into the box. He's that midfielder that progresses the ball, gets the goals. So I feel like they just need to address that hole a little bit, because they're pretty leaky. They're pretty leaky, and it's a little bit concerning. But elsewhere across the league, we're going to very quickly go through the rest of the results before we preview Europe, because we have Champions League back this week. Woo! Elsewhere, we do have, which ones haven't we talked about? Milan 3, Lecce 0. Pulisic, Andrea, continues his incredible start to the season with another goal. Teo again. It must kind of be annoying for Saka at this point how often Teo's scoring and how much he's got over him. But an impressive win for Milan, even though Lecce, again, if they could finish a bag of chips, they'd be in a much better position, right?
Yeah. But I think another good result for Milan, and finally happy to see Teo Hernandez actually going forward, because the first few games, I don't know what was happening. He was like told to stay back. It was horrific to watch, because that's not Teo Hernandez at all. So glad to see him, and he's scoring a few goals now. So they're on the right track, but again, it's still quite an easier game, so can't get too ahead of ourselves. But good win at the end of the day.
No, these are games they're expected to win, right? But I did see from the stats, Lecce still had a lot of chances. And I was like, classic Lecce just cannot score. How many did Kustovic miss? Elsewhere, we have Bologna 1, Atalanta 1. Adam, banger from Samardzic. Hell of a goal, opens his account for Atalanta. Any other interesting points from this game?
Not really, no. I think, Bologna fought well. They took the lead in this match, and then obviously had the sending off as well in this. So there were pretty much 10 men before that very moment when Samardzic does score the eventual equaliser. Atalanta looked like the most likely to actually go on to win, to be fair, because at that point they had an XG of 2, I think it was 2.09 versus Bologna's 0.41 or something like that. And that was something that probably Andrea has been used to with Italiano for many a year, to be fair. But I think there's more worrying signs about Bologna. They haven't been able to necessarily get that kind of quality to replace the players that have left. I would fear for what happens going forward. And I just don't know what to say about Bologna in the meantime. But as I think Rory's connection is just about keeping together. Yes, he's with us still. Rory?
I'm here.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think Italiano skipped the attacking sessions in his coaching qualifications, right? He just cannot coach an attack at all. It's insane.
Or a striker.
None of his, it blows my mind. It blows my mind that none of his teams seem able to score goals. But he has kind of semi-turned it around from what was a pretty horrendous start to the season. So maybe they can progress. And elsewhere, speaking of no goals, Empoli drew 0-0 with Fiorentina. We're actually not going to talk about it because I don't think anything of note happened. And currently, Cagliari are winning 2-1. And last time I checked, 2-1 in the 87th minute. Dennis Mann has scored. He's in my Fantacalcio. I'll take it. But that would be a huge win for Cagliari if they get their first win of the season. That would leave Monza as the only winless team in Serie A, a record that Nesta definitely doesn't want. That is your Serie A weekend. Hell of a weekend. Napoli top. Could they do it again? I'm pretty excited. We are going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we're going to look at all of the Italian action in Europe this week. European football is back. And this time we've double checked. It's definitely happening. We've not got it wrong this time. We hope. So let's start with the Champions League this week. The Italian teams representing, we have Inter taking on Red Star in Milan. We have Atalanta traveling to Shakhtar Donetsk. And we have the first game, which I think is quite intriguing, Liverpool hosting Bologna. Now, we've talked about Bologna's slow start to the season. Adam, just what they need, a trip to Anfield, right?
Yeah, why not? You've just about held on against Atalanta. Why not get yourselves pitted against Arne Slot's Liverpool, who are firing? They seem to be quite fluid with their style of football. So they're definitely not going to be torn apart, are they? Italiano's definitely got his ace up his sleeve to release that striker to score that winning goal. But I think this is going to be a fascinating night, regardless. I think Bologna will enjoy the occasion, but maybe not the result, Rory. I don't think it's going to be a kind night on Bologna.
No, this is the game when it came out of the draw. I was like, I'm really happy for the Bologna fans that they get to travel to a proper cathedral of football and get that away day. And one of my students actually was telling me he's in Bologna and he was like, I got tickets for Anfield. Do you know anybody in Liverpool who can keep me up for a night? I was like, no, it doesn't really work like that in England, not really. But enjoy your night. He was pretty excited. Yeah, I think on the pitch it could be pretty rough, but it's a hell of an occasion for Bologna. I'm really happy for them being in the Champions League. It's just incredible. And the last European Italian game we have this week is Milan taking on Leverkusen in Leverkusen. Leverkusen got a kind of hard-fought draw against Bayern Munich this weekend. A really sturdy game. I kind of sat and watched. It wasn't much fun. But Andrea, can you see Milan getting something in Leverkusen? They're definitely not the Leverkusen of last season. So is there some hope for Fonseca?
No. Leverkusen will win.
Good.
Nice and simple.
Good. Brilliant. I love that. I think you're probably right. But I do feel like they've scored a few goals in the last couple of games, right? Adam, give us something. Milan fans have got to have something to look forward to, no?
I'll probably give a bit more analysis than what Andrea gave us there. I think this could be a bit of a harder game than people anticipate. I think given that Milan have started to build a bit more momentum, and I think Leao on the European nights does like to come out and play. So I think there will be that threat. Obviously, I think a lot has been assumed that Leverkusen are going to be the Leverkusen of last season. They're definitely not. They're definitely a bit more pragmatic than they have been of last season. So I think this is going to be an interesting game where, both teams have a lot to play for. Obviously, at this stage, neither side have got to the best of starts, so to speak. So, getting a point on the road wouldn't be a bad thing for Milan. I think, though, this could genuinely be a game that has a lot of goals. So, personally, I think it's going to be an interesting kind of test for Fonseca, especially if he decides to stick with 4-4-2 as well, because that's the interesting thing. They've got Jonathan Dar, I think it is, in the defensive duties. I think he's being someone that was quoted to potentially join Milan as well in the summer. So it'll be interesting to see whether, obviously, he's kind of targeted in that respect. But I think with Tammy and Alvaro Morata, they're kind of strikers that like the European nights. They like to obviously do the hard work and chase down balls, which, I think that probably gives food for thought for Xabi Alonso, certainly from a Leverkusen point of view. So I'm expecting this to be quite the game, and maybe the one to keep an eye out of. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. It feels like a bit of a heavyweight battle there, I think. Elsewhere in the Europa League, we have Lazio taking on Nice. And we have Roma, who will be playing. Where the frig has it gone?
Elfsborg.
Fucking Elfsborg.
How did you forget about that?
So
that classic team.
Just to look through, guys. As I scroll desperately through Google, just a collection of the most random clubs in Europe. I found it eventually. Elfsborg taking on Roma. Don't miss that one. And in the Conference League, we got so excited. We announced it 2 weeks early. But Andrea, Fiorentina are going to be taking on TNS, the mighty Welsh champions. How do you feel about this one? Still as excited as before?
I think I predicted 1-1. I'm still sticking with that at the moment. I think they've got to win. They've got to show that they've got to create chances and score goals in this game. There's no excuse. They've got to score minimum 5. For real. It's a nice experience. It'll be nice to see them. It's their first experience of it. So I'm sure it will be like but I don't know. This could be.
Can I just say, it sounds like Fiorentina are taking like a sofa shop team, like TNS. It just doesn't sound right.
It sounds like it sounds like a broadband.
Sale ends Friday. Yeah, no, exactly.
Oh gosh.
But yeah, no, I think there is a bit of an interesting thing here because the Welsh teams in England have said that they want to go into the Welsh Cup now, so that they can get the European places while competing in the English League, taking away occasions like this for the TNS, which is just honestly, like, without getting too, it's genuinely shocking. Like, either go into your Welsh League and you play in the Welsh League and you do it there and you build it there, or you can't have the best of both worlds. So I think if I was a TNS fan, I'd be fuming. And I think a team like this deserves this kind of occasion. And it develops a Welsh game without getting too, too serious about it. I saw that headline. I was like, fucking cheeky pricks. So yeah, I hope they do well, but for Andrea's mental health, I hope Fiorentina get at least 5 because I feel like he might be a broken man at this point. But guys, before we send you on your way home, we do also have a Serie A weekend coming up this weekend. So Adam, take us through the fixtures for game week 7.
Yes, game week 7 has certainly come round quickly, and we'll start off on Friday evening, starting off at 5:30 in particular, as Napoli host Como, and later on that evening at 7:45 we see Hellas Verona take on Venezia, which could be an all 6-pointer at this point in the season. Then we move into Saturday's fixtures, starting off at 2 p.m. as Udinese are at home to Lecce. Then we move on to 5 p.m. as Atalanta host Genoa. And then at 7:45 at the San Siro, we see Inter playing Torino. Then moving into Sunday's fixtures at 11:30, Juventus at home to Calgary, which is definitely going to be a goal fest, given Calgary have just confirmed a 3-2 win against Parma in that space of time when we was just saying earlier that it was only 2-1 to them. Anyway, at 2 p.m. on Sunday, you've got Bologna at home to Parma, Lazio at home to Empoli before we enter the 5 p.m. kickoff time as Monza hosts Roma before the prime time game of the weekend, 7:45, Viola at home to Milan, and Andrea may be crying even further. We don't know. We shall wait and see, folks, but make sure you have tuned in even to our podcast next week as we digest it all for you.
/ group therapy session at this point. But, the good news is at least Pulley can take a week off. He won't be getting absolutely battered this weekend by the Ultras. So we won't need to call the RSPCA or whatever the Italian equivalent is. I can't remember. But yeah, nice week off for Pulley. So good work. I did see the Cagliari Twitter feed. Domino's put up a thing, starts with P, and everybody loves it, and they just retweeted Pulley. Absolutely fantastic. But guys, we are finished for this week. We're going to let you go home. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed yourself. Andrea, where can our listeners and viewers find you?
Yeah, mainly on TikTok at Calcio Fiore. On there, a lot about football in general and Fiorentina, I guess, when they win.
When you have to. Yeah.
But yeah, you can find me on there.
Absolutely love it. Well, Adam, as always, thank you for joining us. Guys, make sure that you jump over back onto your podcast app and go grab the Premier League show, which should be right there, right next to it. And you can go listen to us laugh at Manchester United. What more do you want? You can find us on Twitter at Italian Anglopod, on Instagram, TikTok, and now Threads at Anglo-Italian Pod, so that we're prepared to jump off the Elon Musk shit when it finally sinks. So you can catch us on Threads. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, if you're watching on YouTube, just YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button down here. Messiest ending I've ever done. We will see you next time. Ciao, a dopo.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.